Welcome to Software Safari. Let me be your guide through the jungle of personal finance and accounting software. So we have proprietary solutions such as You Need a Budget, and then we have a bunch of open source software, which is what we're going to talk about. And I'll try to guide you through the jungle of that in order to find some closure after spending too much time researching some of these apps. The obligatory GPT generated image for our topic today. And let me start with a question: why even care about accounting? And I'm taking here a quote from plaintextaccounting.org, which is again quoting The Millionaire Next Door, where they say that there's some research, which I'm now not directly quoting because I didn't actually look at the book, but that basically spending time on accounting means that you're more likely to do well with finance, is sort of the general gist of it. Anyways, let's not get lost in the details here. What should finance personal accounting software even do? Well, some of the features that I find useful and that also most of these apps have are firstly tracking assets. So if you have stocks, cryptocurrency, you have a car or real estate, or you have precious metals, then the price of at least these will fluctuate daily. And since there are plenty of online APIs, it would be cool to have a tool which can get the current price of your stocks, for example, to tell you how much they're worth. And then there's the other aspect of it, which is the budgeting. Maybe you have some amount of income, and then you want to budget your money in such a way that you don't overspend. What pretty much all of these offer as well is importing like transactions from your bank in CSV format, and it allows you to apply categories or tags. Some of them support rules. So for example, well, if the payee, right, like the person that you're paying money to is McDonald's, then maybe add the category eating out. In order to see where money is flowing, coming from, going to, it's nice to have the ability to explore in the form of reports, graphs, etc. And well, that ties in with, for example, categories, etc. We have a bunch of popular proprietary ones, such as You Need a Budget. That's one that I've heard a lot. There is, for example, a subreddit with 200,000 members. But let's skip over the proprietary. Of course, we're interested in the open source software. GNU Cash is sort of what I think, if you go looking around in open source financing, you'll hear a lot about. It's a GNU project, which is obviously ubiquitous as an organization. While it doesn't have the most stars on GitHub, it's, I think, one of the most widely used ones. Firefly 3 is self-hosted. Firefly is sort of the PHP JavaScript ecosystem, and it definitely looks nicer than GNU Cash. And then very similar to GNU Cash is Money Manager X. It drew my attention about 2 years ago because it has an Android and iOS app, which GNU Cash doesn't have. But other than that, it's pretty similar to GNU Cash, also C++. And then we have Actual Budget, which I'll give it away, is sort of what I've moved to right now from using Money Manager X. You can see it's pretty popular on GitHub in terms of numbers of stars. It also has plenty of contributors. And what I like is that it's not a organization managed by one person. Well, then there's this complete rabbit hole of plain text accounting that has sort of three popular contenders: Ledger, HLedger, and Beancount. C++, Haskell, and Python, but mostly the same concept of plain text accounting, and we'll get into detail maybe a bit later. And then lastly, we have KDE with KMyMoney. Obviously, KDE is also ubiquitous, like Cash. I don't think it's as popular, but sure, should be good. And it also falls into the same category in terms of style and aesthetics and features as these three. So Cash, Money Manager, and KMyMoney. And then I hadn't heard about it until today, but apparently there's this finance maybe thing with a lot of stars on GitHub, and I don't even think it's properly finished. So this results from a failed startup, which then ultimately decided to go open source and is trying to rebuild. Has a lot of stars, but I don't think that it has a lot of users at the moment. It's time to look at some graphical user interfaces. Since that's what I started with, let's look at a GUI of Money Manager X. And this is pretty much what it looks like today. You have this menu on the side that, for example, allows you to have accounts, the ability to make a budget, which is what's happening here. You also have here over at assets, the ability to add, for example, what we talked about at the start, like the value of your car or real estate. You can add stocks and also crypto because it uses the Yahoo API. So you can pull in anything, the live data for anything that's on Yahoo. It has pretty extensive pre-made reports. So that's graphs which you can use. So where's my money going? Where's it coming from? Who do I pay the most money to? It has pie charts, etc. But none of it is really very pretty. And my main issue with it is that when I'm using it, I regularly get the oddest of lags and memory leaks, like literal notifications that a memory leak occurred, and the UI just goes blank some of the time for multiple seconds. And for that reason, it's not a pleasant experience, even though it seems like it does everything that one would want to do. So ultimately, I moved to this thing called Budget. It's a JavaScript-based app. Here on the left, we have our accounts. For example, we have one with Bank of America, and then we have transactions historically, like who did we pay the money to? For example, Home Depot. That was for food, and it was just 78 cents. Pretty cheap deal there. Another strong suit, I think, of actual Budget is the graphs. So you have these automatically generated graphs, and then you have the ability to add some custom ones. There's lots of stuff you can do here, and you can customize this with regards to whatever the note you want. I'm not even sure what I'm clicking here. One more thing is Budget, which is very easy to read. Like we have for the month of February, 400 allocated for food. And then, well, at the end of the month, we know how much we spent. And I find it very intuitive. For me, it was definitely a learning process. I had never done a budget before, even though I had used Money Manager X. I never got around using it there. What is lacking in it is that we don't have what Money Manager X or Cash have, which is the pulling in of data from the internet for your stock value, etc. One last thing I want to show is the rules feature. For example, might set, if the payee is McDonald's, you can automatically set the category to be eating out. Okay, next, if we look at Firefly 3, I think it strikes the best balance between feature completeness, graphical appeal, and cross-platform portability. So looks pretty similar to actual, like we have our budget here. I don't fully find it as pretty as actual budget, but it does the job. I think it's somewhat intuitive. So, and again, we have rules, which is similar to what we have in actual budget. What I really like is the feature to track recurrable expenses in the form of subscriptions. So your rent, your health insurance. What you don't have, again, is the ability to track individual stock prices. In terms of reports, you don't have them pre-made. It's more that you sort of click some things, like I click this random thingy, some time frame, and then submit, and it will generate the report. Again, I don't think it's as pretty as actual budget. And now last but not least is plain text accounting, which is the concept of basically not using a database to store your data and to keep your data quite separate from, well, some scripts that you run to do stuff and analyze your financial data. So plaintextaccounting.org is sort of a front page to 3 projects. I've mentioned them: HLedger, Ledger, and BeanCount. And they're all pretty similar, but they have a different programming language. And one particular project built on BeanCount is BeanHub. It's software as a service. It makes setting up a BeanCount account really simple. And the .bean file is basically a format for describing your financial data. And you can, again, do this manually, or you can use import scripts. And the cool thing with the BeanCount, or also BeanHub, is that you get some GUI features. It's easy to write extra scripts to extend to hack. And one of these things that I found quite exciting was accounting with large language models. This is a person that uses LLMs to classify and organize their BeanCount files. To summarize, we have actual budget and Firefly with a good GUI and pretty easy to use. Firefly a bit more feature complete than actual budget. Money Manager X a bit more easy to use, and then GNU Cache because it's cross-platform. GNU Cache probably the most feature complete, probably even usable for business. I read that it has the ability to generate invoices for business. And then we have plain text accounting, which is super hackable and also not difficult to use, especially if you're using BeanHub, but probably not as easy to use at first compared to actual budget. There is even more software, but my software safari ends with actual budget for now, although I am pretty intrigued by BeanCount. Of course, proprietary goes to the fire, and have a good day. Thank you for watching.